Good evening and welcome to another episode of Weather or Not. I'm your host, David Guerrero, joined by our forecaster, Kyle Eck. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we saw temperatures reach 80 degrees. Now we're settling for highs in the 50-degree range. Why is this the case?
Sure, David. So we're seeing more of a regime more typical of dreary, cool, wet conditions. That's going to stick around with us through Friday, Saturday, and into Sunday. But I do think we'll make some breaks for some sunshine early and mid next week, and we'll turn drier and potentially warmer as well.
Well, hopefully we'll see sunshines for the Moving On concerts on Friday. Now, I heard you had some great nature in the news stories lined up for us. What are those stories?
Yeah, of course. So my first story, David, is going to be consisting of the Aurora Borealis we were able to see in parts of Pennsylvania and the rest of the northern half of the U.S. And my other story is going to be consisting of the amount of daylight we see here in Pennsylvania as we head through spring and heading into summer. What about you?
Well, my first story talks about the potential discovery of water on the moon. Then my second story talks about artificial trees combating climate change. Now, I would like to say that Connor Freidhoff also has a feature talking about the UV exposure in the United States. But first, let's get into Nature in the News.
After a few warm weeks, trees and other outdoor plants are beginning to look a lot more reminiscent of summer, and so does the sky. Through May, Pennsylvania will see an increase of about 1 hour of daylight. As summer nears, many across America will see the sun rise near 6 in the morning. On the other hand, many of us will also begin to see sunsets after 8 in the evening. This is also the time of the year when parts of Alaska begin to see what's known as the midnight sun. This happens when regions along and north of the Arctic Circle don't see the sunset all day long. The farther north in the Arctic, the more days are spent under the midnight sun. The Northern Hemisphere will also continue to see their days get longer for nearly another 2 months, of course until summer solstice in late June. As schools begin to let out and vacation season rolls around, be sure to get outdoors and enjoy the longer days.
Trillions of pounds of water may be present on the moon, trapped in tiny glass beads that could have formed when asteroids struck the lunar surface. The research was conducted by scientists in China who analyzed the first lunar soil samples to be returned to Earth since the 1970s. The lunar soil sample analyzed for this study was collected by China's Chang'e 5 mission, which carried regolith samples back home in 2020. From those samples, researchers from several institutions in China handpicked 150 grains to study. The theory proposed by this latest research is that these glass beads can be saturated with water when they're hit by solar winds. The winds are believed to carry hydrogen and oxygen from the sun's atmosphere across the solar system. The findings build on research from NASA that suggests that water is present on the sunlit side of the moon. Understanding how water is stored on the moon is useful because it can point future lunar astronauts towards potential resources that could one day be converted into drinking water or rocket fuel.
The Aurora Borealis is a phenomenon normally associated with the Arctic. However, that wasn't the case the night of April 23rd. Late Sunday night, millions of people across the Northern Hemisphere were treated to a pretty far southward protruding extension of the Northern Lights. This all stemmed from what's known as a coronal mass ejection, which is a giant expulsion of plasma from the sun's corona. These can take anywhere from around 12 hours to a few days to reach Earth. Upon impact, the ejections interact with Earth's magnetic field and trigger the bright lights seen in the sky Sunday night. Portions of the northern half of the U.S. were able to see quite the light show, including right here in Pennsylvania. Keep in tune with the space weather. Once in a while, you may be able to enjoy the northern lights from your own backyard.
Scientists have developed an artificial tree in Switzerland to address the challenge of clean energy distribution and storage. The tree-like device resembles a satellite dish and can absorb and store solar energy. It utilizes solar energy to separate water and create hydrogen, which can be used to power homes and vehicles. The production of renewable energy results in lower emissions than burning fossil fuels, making it crucial in combating climate change. While renewable energy installations have seen progress, the transition to clean energy is not yet widespread across all industrial sectors. However, the current global energy crisis has fueled unprecedented momentum in renewable power installations, with a projected doubling energy storage capacity for over the next 5 years. Driven by factors such as high prices, geopolitical tensions, countries have accelerated their transition towards renewable energy sources.
Well, if you are heading off downtown this Friday evening to head to the Moving On concert, consider bringing the umbrellas, the rain jackets, and the ponchos because it's going to be a very cool and wet start to our weekend that's thanks to our low pressure center well off to our west, and that's going to help to keep our warm weather held off to our southwest. Now, at the same time, high pressure center off the Massachusetts coastline is going to help to bring a breezy flow of air near the Delmarva coastline and the greater I-95 corridor. By Saturday, it's going to be much of the same story. However, our low pressure system moves off to our north, and that's going to weaken. And then while it does that, it's going to transfer some of its energy down to a new area of low pressure. And that's actually going to help to funnel in some breezier conditions overnight Friday and heading into our Saturday. But look at that. We see our cool weather get out of our way and head off to the greater northeast U.S. So we here in Pennsylvania are going to be seeing more average temperatures for this time of the year. And then by Sunday, it's going to be rinse and repeat once again. We can't rule out the threat for showers here in central Pennsylvania, but the mild weather does stay for one more day. Emphasis on one more day. We have the cooler weather out to the Midwest, and that's going to be funneling our way through Monday, so the warm weather is not here to stay. To recap the forecast, Friday is going to be dreary and cool. In fact, we'll be around 10 to say 15 degrees below average, all while we see moderate rainfall. By Friday night, we see the rain and wind kick in for us. We'll see some gusty winds overnight with a low near 47 degrees. And I do want to note, through Friday and into Friday night, we could see upwards of a ½ inch to an inch of rainfall. By Saturday, we'll warm up a bit and keep the raindrops at bay with a low or high, near 62 degrees, again with scattered showers. For Saturday night, the chance of rain does stick around with us with a low near 49 degrees. And then for Sunday, this is going to be the warmest day of our weekend with a high near 64 degrees and PM showers returning to our neck of the woods. Stay tuned. Coming up in our show, Freidhoff has his feature on UV radiation.
As the days pass, the amount of daylight time continues to increase for our area, continuing to do so until the summer solstice, falling this year on June 21st. The approach to summer can be an exciting time for many. School is wrapping up and the weather generally continues to become more conducive to outdoor activity. However, it must be stressed that as the summer approaches, the level of ultraviolet or UV rays affecting the earth continues to increase. Overexposure to UV rays causes sunburn, a common and often annoying ailment associated with outdoor summer activity. Those who do not regularly protect themselves from UV rays put themselves at risk for numerous sun-related diseases and illnesses, such as skin cancer and melanoma. Understanding solar radiation and its risks can allow more people to be safe when participating in outdoor summer activities. The way the Earth copes with solar radiation is through a solar energy budget. Incoming radiation is either absorbed or reflected at the cloud level or surface. The Earth itself also emits radiation in return, ensuring that an equal amount of energy is both absorbed and reflected by the Earth. The way that forecasters convey solar radiation risk to the public is through the UV index. Most weather apps have a built-in feature that displays the index as a single number. The higher the number, the higher the UV risk. But that's just it. It measures risk. In reality, a UV index of 4 is still able to cause a sunburn like a 7 or 9. You can get sunburn on most summer days when the sun is out. The question now becomes, is there a better way to convey the risk of excessive sun exposure to the public?
In order to show you how fast UV values increase throughout the year, we're going to take a look at a couple of monthly snapshots. This is from February. Here in Pennsylvania, we're seeing values about 3 to 4. Not very high and not very concerning. Going further south, wherever you get values already into 7 and 8. That's the kind of levels you need to think about applying sunscreen at least every hour, especially if you're fair-skinned. Now, coming into April, we can see values in Pennsylvania start to go around the 6 to 7 area. Further south, people going on, say, spring break, a spring vacation down to the beach, levels are getting as high as 10, so it's even more imperative to get sunscreen on fairly often in order to avoid a sun-related illness. June is the climatological peak for UV. The highest are located here in the American Southwest and parts of Florida, the Gulf Coast, and far south Texas, where values are as high as 12 and 13. You got to be applying sunscreen as much as you can in order to avoid a sun-related illness. Stay in the shade, stay hydrated. Here in Pennsylvania, it's about 8 to 9. Again, still values that you need to worry about, your exposure to sun, limiting your exposure to sun, and making sure that you're avoiding heat exhaustion and sun poisoning. Now, this is from Pittsburgh in 2017. The black line is the mean of the UV value. Blue is what was forecasted. So sometimes you have a couple dips here. Those are based on cloud cover and precipitation. Here in late April, we're hovering around the 7 to 8 mark, basically straddling the line between high and very high. High, where you're pretty much going to have to apply every 45 to 60 minutes. Very high is when you have to think about applying every 30 to 45 minutes. That's sunscreen. So you can see, even though we're in April, we're not in summer yet, we still have to worry about making sure that you're able to stay hydrated, stay out of the sun, get some shade, and apply sunscreen enough. Because if you're not, you run the risk of getting sun poisoning or exposing yourself to numerous sunlight-related illnesses, such as melanoma and skin cancer.
Furthermore, emissions spiking in the 1980s along with CFC discharge accelerated the widening of the ozone hole. A decrease in stratospheric ozone particles allow for more harmful UV rays to enter the atmosphere. This inherently increases the risk of skin-based illnesses and diseases like skin cancer. So not only does the increase of harmful rays become a people issue, but a global warming issue as well. Understanding public perception of warnings regarding UV rays will help researchers and weather service providers better convey UV ray forecasts and observations. It's now a matter of time for better outreach and communication methods to become reality regarding one of the most impactful and important variables in sun forecasting. For Weather or Not, I'm Connor Freidhoff.
If you're heading out to the Moving On concert this Friday evening, bring the umbrellas and rain jackets with you because it's going to be pretty uncomfortable out there. And that starts on Friday with April showers. We'll go for a high near 54 degrees. Now, just some food for thought, this is about 10 to say 15 degrees below average for this time of the year. The rain and wind really kicks into high gear though. Friday night, we'll go for a low near 47 degrees. By Saturday, the rain and the wind start to taper off a little bit, and because of that, our temperatures help to bump up somewhat as well. We'll go for a high near 62 degrees, and then we'll also keep it quite balmy overnight with a low near 50. By Sunday, the rain does return, so it's going to be quite a bit of a rinse and repeat type of day with a high near 64 degrees, and then a cold front does slide through our area overnight heading into Monday as our lows dip down to near 40. The cold front really impacts our temperatures, but not so much our sky conditions. We'll keep it dreary through Monday and Tuesday, but look at this. 50 degrees on Monday, upper 40s by Tuesday. This is upwards of 20 degrees now below average for this time of the year. Luckily by Wednesday though, we see a reduction in those rain showers as high pressure tries to move into our region by Thursday and Friday. And I think after a few days with highs well below average, David, we are going to finally see an increase of temperatures back to near average.
Well, thank you, Kyle, for the forecast. And with that cool start to May, hopefully temperatures will rebound and remain at average for the rest of the month. And now here is your Weather Whiz quiz question for the week. Which U.S. state do you find the highest UV exposure? Is it A, the great state of Texas, B, California, C, New Mexico, or D, Arizona? And if you guess C, New Mexico, you are correct. Now, I want to highlight that it's very important to wear sunscreen as summer nears, as the UV rays have serious health consequences with it.
Yeah, so I just also want to note, too, as we head closer to May, our UV sun exposure this time of the year is almost the same as it is in mid to late August. So while it might be cooler in May, that's no excuse to not put on the sunscreen. Also, another thing, the clouds also aren't the best at blocking some of the sun's UV rays, so it also is important to wear the sunscreen when it's cloudy outside.
I absolutely agree, Kyle. Now that is all we have for you today. Join us next week for another episode of Weather or Not. Thank you.